Coming up, I'm going to share why I believe certain entrepreneurs fail after leaving their corporate job and have to end up going back to that corporate job. Stay tuned. What is up, App Nation? It is Steve P. Young, founder at Masters.co, and I thought it was fitting for a Friday episode to talk about something that I've been really fascinated by. So I've been talking to a few of my podcast guests when I feel like it's appropriate about why I believe if two people take the same course, right, same video course that is thousands of dollars, why some make it in the app space or any space, and why others fail and end up not making it. And I think about this routinely because I think about the times that I have left my job to pursue entrepreneurship. I've done it twice actually, and I ended up going back to that corporate job. So I'll tell you this first story. So the first story was right out of college. I hated my job. So I was probably at 24 at the time, and I was working long hours, and I ended up leaving that job. I was like, forget it, I'm leaving. I'm taking that plunge, right? I hate it anyways, and I started this decal business. So this was 2004, and I was ranking really well on Google. So I was ranking well for Batman decals, Superman decals, and I was making sales from there. And I was like, wow, this is cool. I bought this huge printer, and I put it in my parents' living room. So I was still living with my parents at the time. And I was making like few hundred dollars a month off of that. And it wasn't huge, but I had big visions for it. But for some reason, a couple of months after this, again, I was at my parents' house, so I didn't have any expenses. But I had this business that I was really enjoying. My dad even said to me, hey, I see you making these little decals. If you want, why don't you just tell me how to do it and I'll do them for you. Just give me those instructions. And for some reason, they never pushed me to go back to corporate life. They just said, they saw what I was doing. They saw I was being busy and working on this business. And I was having the ball of like a ball, right? Like I was loving everything. I was making relationships with other reviewers. I was loving life essentially. And I was making only a few $100s a month. And unfortunately, I stopped. Like for some reason, I was ranking number one for Google for all these terms. I stopped. Ended up finding a job doing email marketing and so forth. And so I went back, even though I didn't have to, right? I just felt like at the time, maybe I wasn't confident enough to pursue entrepreneurship. Like I needed to learn a bunch more. But so I ended up leaving and going back to like a corporate job, my 9 to 5. I found that job. Now what happened is I ended up learning more about email marketing, SEO, SEM, search paid ad. So I learned a lot more about online marketing. So if I look back on it, I loved the fact that I went back because I got to learn so much. But I ended up I do regret it. I do not regret it. And like I probably could have learned all that anyways if I just stayed with what I was doing the decal business. Who knows what would have happened. So the second time I left was critical actually. So this was probably 2011. And again, I hated my boss at the time, and I was working long hours, and he was just very abrasive. The other one, I just was working long hours and wasn't getting paid when I was 24 very well. This one, I hated my boss, and I was like, this is ridiculous. And I left that job, and I already had my son at the time. So he was 2010, it's about 2010. So he was about 2 years old, and I was 30 at the time, ended up leaving. And I made connections with people at my old job. And what happened was I made relationships with developers. So I thought I wanted to make an what was it called? The Urban Spoon, the app that where you shake it and you get restaurants. So I wanted to do it for kids' activities because I was a parent at the time, and I was like, this would be a perfect idea. So essentially I thought, hey, I'll apply for all these accelerators like Y Combinator and all these things and pursue this. So I was, forget it. We had a bit of a savings. So my wife and I said, okay, you hate your job anyways. You're miserable. Why don't you leave? She started really focusing on growing her business, her law firm that she's been doing on the side for a little bit. And so we started figuring that out. And again, I was like, okay, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to go to YC. We started applying for YC. We started making demos. We started really working on this app. But after 3 months, we were going through all our savings, and I was like, holy crap, we're in a bit of a hole. I better start looking for other jobs. And so I ended up stopping. We didn't get into YC, obviously, and ended up stopping and then looking for another job. And luckily I found one because I started applying and I made a commitment to myself that I had 4 different interviews that were pretty good prospects. And I was like, I'm going to land all 4. I don't care. I'm going to say whatever they want to hear. And I'm going to just be a great interviewer. I'm going to land all 4. I ended up landing 3 of the 4, but picked one and ended up 4 years. And that was the last job I had. But I went into that last job thinking this is going to be the last job that I ever have. And obviously it worked out. But again, why? So I started thinking like, why did I fail these past 2 times? And I believe that it's because I got religious about how I was going to make money. So the first time I thought, hey, I just thought I didn't know enough. Okay. That one, I just didn't know enough. I felt like I had to learn more. Again, if I was talking to my 24 self, I'd say you'll learn a ton more just doing this business than you would if you went and through all these companies. Because I ended up leaving all these companies because I wanted to learn more and more. So I would stay at a job for about a year, leave because I wanted to learn more, stay at a job for another year, leave because I wanted to learn more. So if you look at her resume, it was like year and a half, leave, year and a half, leave, until my very last job where I stayed about 4 years. But essentially, I felt like I wanted to learn. And I felt like I would have learned a lot more on my own rather than going job by job, for instance, right? So that's the advice I would give my 24 self. To my 30-year-old self who ended up leaving, I would have said, do not get religious. Because I felt like I knew enough back then, right? Do not get religious on how you're going to make money. And this is why I feel like most people fail. You get religious. I thought I was going to get into an accelerator and that's how I was going to quote unquote make it as an entrepreneur. This past time when I left into the beginning of 2014, I wasn't religious. I just said I had an idea of how I thought I was going to make money. So when I left in 2014, after starting the podcast, after the podcast had picked up a little bit, I was like, whoa, there's something to this. And up leaving, I was like, okay, I was doing consulting. And I was like, all right, I'm going to do a little bit of consulting where I did one big main client. And then I was going to do video courses because I thought that was the cool thing to do, right? Like everybody was doing it. So I thought I was going to do it that way. And then when poop hit the fan, when my big consulting client left, 3 months into being on my own, I was like, holy crap. Rather than get religious, being like, okay, I'm going to double down. So I did double down on these video courses and I thought I was going to do more and more. That wasn't working out well. So I tried everything. I applied for part-time jobs because I didn't want to go back, but I wanted to earn some money. So I applied for part-time jobs, copyright jobs, anything that I could find that was part-time or remote, I would apply. I went back to my old company. I said, hey, is there anything I can do for you guys? Anything. And they signed a contract with me to do some PR. Perfect. And then certain people said, hey, can you help me with your app launch? I was like, sure, like why not? Like I threw up a one-pager said, hey, you need help with your app launch? $500, anything. So I just threw anything and everything. And I think that's the main reason why I quote unquote made it now. Now we're 4 years in, we're doing phenomenally well, but it's because I didn't get religious. I said, I'm going to do anything and everything to make it work. And sometimes we hear these stories of big products that end up making it and you don't hear the backstory. Oh, I had to do some consulting gig. Like we're running out of money. So I had to do some consulting to really make up for the bridge to make payroll, right? You don't hear these stories because at the end of the day, you just hear the successful product, right? You're like, oh, this product is so great. But when you're through the thick of it, you hear all these side stories of people just doing almost anything and everything to make sure it works. And that's why I feel like there's a difference with those that quote unquote make it and have a successful business and for those who don't. Because I feel like those who are too religious about how they're going to make money, they end up making mistakes. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all not going to know exactly how things are going to pan out. But when you get so religious about making the one way that you're going to make money, then things start faltering. So it was trying anything and everything and then figuring out that people were actually coming to me for app marketing help. This consulting business actually was monetizing really well. That ended up getting rid of the video courses, getting rid of everything, and then just focusing on the consulting. And now that the consulting is doing really well, bringing back video courses, like, is there something new I can do here? I gotta tell you, like, I launched a App Masters Academy, quote unquote, it was called something else back then, in the earlier 2014. And I got maybe like 3 or 4 people signing up for that, paying $25 a month. Now, I stopped that in the beginning of 2015. I just got rid of everything. And then I focused on the consulting and I relaunched it 2 years later. And now we're doing really well. We've got like dozens of members already through the academy. So sometimes it's just about timing, right? Like it didn't work in 2014, but it's working now in 2017 because I just focused on consulting first, learned everything. Now I'm like, okay, I can really talk about app marketing. This is really good stuff that I've been able to do. So let me create video courses. Back then, I was just doing it for like, I just thought this was the way to do it because a lot of online entrepreneurs are doing it that way. So I think it's one, being religious about to recap all this, being religious about how you're going to make money. And then two, sometimes it's all about timing, right? Feeling like, hey, this idea would have worked back then. You tried it, but then maybe you didn't build up enough of a brand. And then now you try it and then it's now working as well. So hope that was helpful for you as you go straight into the weekend. Give it some thought. If you're at a startup or a corporate job and you've been wanting to be an entrepreneur, this is what I've been saying to my son, everybody that is close to me, and said, like, what are you going to regret more, right? Are you going to regret leaving that corporate job and then doing this and then having to go back? Or are you going to regret never doing it? And I think you would regret not doing it, right? There's all these studies about people who are dying and what their biggest regrets are. And it's usually what you did not do rather than what you did. So step one, if you've got that hunger, that fire inside of you to leave, I would say do it, right? Figure it out. Give yourself a year. It's okay if you're gonna have to find another job because at least you gave it a shot. And then maybe a couple of years down the road, when you finally do leave again, it'll work. For me, I left twice, did not work. And then the third time, it finally worked. And it's been something that's been phenomenal. And if even I had to go back, let's say everything falters and things just break, I had to go back, like, these were amazing 4 years of my life. I made some amazing connections, and who gives a crap, right? Life is so long. I've got another 40 years. I'll give it a shot in another 4 years. And so I think we give ourselves too many time constraints as well because we feel like it's so short, life is so short. But really, life is really long. And so there's a lot ahead of us as well. All right, guys, have a good weekend, and I'll see you on the next video, podcast, whatever it is that you listen to. All right, bye.